Hello everyone. It's a little bit different sort of pre-brief. This is just me in my place of residence. And just wanted to give you a little bit of information about what you'll see tomorrow, the breakdown of the class, what a compelling question is, a little bit of background on the new social studies standards. In the background, you're going to be hearing my dishwasher, so I apologize for that, but that is the way it is at this moment. So the first thing is a breakdown of my class. I've got 20 first graders, and a few students receive some special education services for speech. Some receive services for extra math help with special education. There's some students that receive LLI, reading recovery, and then about half the class will go to ELP, either for math or reading. So it's a very interesting group of students, but one thing that is really exciting about them is that they seem to be really engaged and curious, no matter who the student is. So what I'll be doing tomorrow is something that's completely brand new for me, and that's teaching social studies with a compelling question, and something that's a little bit more inquiry-based within social studies. Before, just like everyone, I feel like you have a unit and you share information and you have it all planned out for you and for the students. But this is a little bit different, that you have this compelling question that really excites and engages the students and helps them hopefully to ask more questions and be curious, and let that curiosity of your class help to guide the learning. You have set objectives, things you want to accomplish, but the trajectory from point A to point B is not completely defined. So tomorrow it's going to be using an engaging activity, which a lot of people already do, but then also exploring this compelling question and getting students to think, and using that as a guiding force for the rest of our unit. And now my students have some experience with social studies, not a lot. I mean, social studies units, we tie it in with reading every once in a while, but as far as social studies units go, when we have had them, it's been very set up. Here's what we're going to learn about, and then I guide them through all the lessons. As far as other areas or disciplines go, so science, we've done some science activities where we've been able to use the Wonderwall, so it's a little bit more inquiry-based. So I came up with penguins, but there wasn't a specific compelling question or anything that went with it. It was just the idea of penguins, and gave them an opportunity to ask their questions. So they used the Wonderwall, which is a picture of them thinking with a little thought bubble, and they were required to have like 1 or 2 questions that they put up there to help me understand what they wanted to know or what they already knew about the topic. And so that was good for me to see. So it helped me to determine what kids wanted to learn about this year with penguins as opposed to other years that I've taught that. And it also is up there. So if a student had a question that came up through our research or just through their own brain, they could write it down at any point and stick it up on the Wonderwall, and I'd be able to look at that and see how I wanted to create a lesson to help them find that answer. We have also used Kwl Charts, so that's another way that they've shown their questioning strategies. But one of the things that's interesting about this is that it might seem a little bit more teacher-oriented tomorrow, just because I'm guiding them through this activity and then leading them into this question. But the hope is that this whole process of social studies will be a little bit more student-led. But student-led also in the way that we're exposing new information and topics, and we're having a lot of conversation about all of those pieces. Trying to think if there's anything else that would be important to know about what you'll be seeing tomorrow. Once again, it's new for me. And that's the exciting thing, is that it probably will not be completely perfect, but it's a great jumping off point for everybody to see that, it's a lot of the same things that we've been doing, but it's just a new way to look at things. Some of the standards seem a little bit wordy and a little bit complex, so it's good to note that we can dig in and we can find ways to make it work for kids and make sure that these compelling questions are questions that we can really get kids excited about. So they're excited to learn and ask more questions and be more engaged and have an authentic experience with their social studies curriculum. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that might be it. There will be some other things that we'll talk about and we'll see, depending on your familiarity with the new social studies standards, if there are some that are things that the teacher is supposed to accomplish, the things that teachers need to do or show or demonstrate, and then there are also standards that are more student-focused, the things that they need to show and demonstrate or understand. And so tomorrow, hopefully a little bit of a mix of my job is teaching a compelling question and what a compelling question is, and that'll be throughout the whole unit. And then some of the things that they'll be doing are focusing on economics and understanding the choices that we have to make with our money. So that is going to be our focus for tomorrow. So hopefully that was enough information, or maybe it was an overload of information. But that's what will be shown tomorrow. And we'll look forward to seeing you. Okay. Bye. Okay, so I'm a huge liar. That wasn't it. There's three things, the look-fors, that I wanted to talk about. The focus of this lesson is to introduce a compelling question through the use of an inquiry-based activity. So this method will be used as a basis for the implementation of social studies curricular units moving forward. And the three look-fors for tomorrow are: what is the role of the teacher versus student within this lesson? And hopefully that can be a jumping off point for what will that look like after the initial lesson. What will it look like from this lesson to all the ones that are in the middle, leading up to the taking action or the summative assessment that you're going to be using? How does the compelling question start the process of using inquiry-based instruction? So just something to think about, something to look for, something to observe while that half hour of time is going by. And then, how has the student's prior experience in the classroom developed their understanding of and ability to engage in inquiry-based learning? So how have those prior experiences with our Wonderwall and our Kwl chart, how have those helped to shape their attitude towards the process, or their ability to move forward, I should say. So those are going to be the look-fors that hopefully you'll be able to observe and take notes on and see, like, oh, I saw this. There are definitely other things to be looking for, but those are some of the things that you might see or may hear or you might notice. And that's like some of the things we're going to be doing in the debrief is noticing or writing down some of the things you saw or that you heard with regards to those look-fors, or maybe some things that you saw or heard or noticed that I did while I was teaching or while the students were working together or thinking or working independently. So that is the hope. So now I think we might be done. Yeah, maybe. I might lie and make another video. Who knows? Okay, so we'll see you soon. Finger in your nose. If you can remember, in the classroom, if we have questions or things we wonder about, where can we post those questions?
On the Wonderwall.
Lovely job keeping your voice in. Graham.
Wonderwall.
Wonderwall. Can you point to the Wonderwall for me, please? Point to it with your eyes. Now bring your eyes back here. Lovely. Okay, we're going to be thinking about that Wonderwall, and we're going to be using it at the very end of our time before we go with Mrs. O'Hara or reading workshop. But I want you to take a look at this word.
Choice.
A lot of you were reading it as you came in. What on earth does choice mean to you? What does it make you think of? What do you think it means?
Anything you want to do.
Oh, I love that we've got some hands on there. Let's try hands on top of heads for right now to see. Isaiah, what's your thought or idea?
Some things and then you pick which one you want.
Oh, okay. So you might have two things, and then you pick one. So you have like a couple of options, and then you pick one from that? Ah, can you think of a time that you have to make a choice? I love the way Ari had her body and her eyes turned towards Isaiah listening. Good job, son. Yeah, you have to make a choice sometimes with McCoy, don't you? Any other thoughts or ideas for what choice makes you think of? Or what do you think it might mean? Robbie?
You can do anything you want.
You can do anything you want? Ah. And I'm going to make this as a bulleted list, okay? So do I have to do complete sentences right now? Not right now. If I was writing it out, I might want to make sure that I have that uppercase letter and that punctuation at the end. Excuse me, Addie.
Pick one and pick one of those choices and you can do it.
So you agree with what Isaiah said, that you picking something and you can do it. First graders, do we ever do anything in this classroom that has to do with choice?
Choice.
Whereas,
Choice time.
choice time, what does choice time mean? What goes on with choice time?
Like what do you want to choose?
Boy, here's some lovely ideas, I just don't see where they're coming from. Oh, Keaton.
You can do like, you choose one and then you do it.
Okay, so choice time. You have some choices for things that you can do. So if you want to draw, if you want to read, if you want to build with bins, if you want to try something, iPad, Raz kids want to go into that.
60 feet.
Our 60 feet thingy out of the Unix cubes.
Yeah, the 60 word is that?
So choice is going to be an important word we're going to talk about in just a moment. But for right now, I need your help to get two things. I'm going to give you these signals. When I give you those signals, I'm going to have you go to your table spot and get two items. Item number one, your iPad.
Yes.
Upside down in your lap when you bring it back to the carpet. Thumbs up if you understand. No headphones at this time. Good question. Item number two is a secret item underneath your pencil box.
Your name now.
It's not your name tag.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll have to see. Respectful, safe, and responsible as we do this, okay? Remember, we're working as first graders, really working on our transitions. Let's see how that transitions go. Those transitions go. Thumbs up. And you're going to bring them right back to your carpet spot. If there's an adult or a teacher around there, you can just walk around them and grab those materials, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
What?
Thumbs up if you're ready.
I got that. Oh, there we go. Yes! Yes! What is it? What is it? I don't know. What is it?
One, two, three. Eyes on me. Take a look at the street. First graders, thumbs up if you think this is real money. Thumbs aside if you think it is fake.
Fake.
It's fake. How can you tell that this is fake money? Nathan, what's your thought? It doesn't have some of the same details as other regular money would. Good observation. Mr. James.
It says play money.
It says play money on the back. Did anybody else notice that?
On both sides.
Okay, so unfortunately I can't give you all a real $20 bill. But I'm going to have you use your amazing imagination for this moment. Oh, Mr. Graham.
Under your
Thank you, stop. Mr. Christian, make sure your iPad's upside down there, sir. I want you to take a look at this $20 bill. And I am going to give you a choice for what you would like to do with that money. You had an actual $20 bill at this time.
Spend it.
What would you choose to do with that money?
Spend it.
Take a look at Mr. Tweet.
Put it in the bank. I already have like $100.
Turn and talk. Level 2.
I would spend it.
Eyes on me. First graders, please take that lovely $20 bill. I know you shared some amazing ideas. Please set it down on the ground in front of you. And I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Sandy, Mr. Eaton. I'm going to ask you to imagine this as a real $20. And you are going to make your choice of what you're going to do with that money. Please go into Seesaw. Please go into activities on Seesaw. And so on activities, you'll see something that actually has an actual $20 bill that looks just like this. So it looks a little bit different than yours. And there are some question marks next to that. Can anybody help me read the first direction? There are a couple of directions on there. What is the first direction, Miss Addie?
Press add to start your work.
Good. Go ahead. Press the add button to start your work. Okay, now remember, if you can't see the rest of the directions, there's that blue bar at the top. Could somebody help me read the second part of those directions? Mr. Graham.
Draw a picture of pictures to show what you would do with $20.
Yeah, Mr. Tweed put a question mark on there, but I meant to actually put a period. Sorry, that was not a question. But I want you to draw a picture or pictures to show what you would do with your $20. We're going to have a couple minutes. You can start that right now. And the last direction is going to press the check mark to send your work to Mr. Tweed. So we're just going to take a couple of moments to draw a picture or pictures of what you would do with this money, how you would choose to use this money.
Is it okay if we do something that's more than, if we get something that's more than $20?
You can think maybe you have some other money invested that you could use towards it.
I have
You'll have to see.
260, so I have
How much would you have now, Mr. Eaton?
226.
Close. If you had 216, you added 20 to that.
I said 206.
You had 206 and added 226. Just help me make sure that's not take a couple more minutes. There you go. Now it should be back to the add. Try it again. Let's go 3 more minutes, first grade. Draw a picture. And if you would like to add a caption, you certainly may. We're not going to record our voices this time. This one is just to draw a picture. And then Mr. Tweet's going to get a chance to show some of them up on the screen. So you can share with the rest of the class what your choice would be for how you would spend your money, what you're choosing to do with that money. Appreciate the details you're putting into your work. About 2 more minutes to wrap up some of your ideas, please. Mr. Tweet actually might change up how we're going to share. We'll do something a little bit different.
I'm done too.
When you're finished, remember that last step. And it's already going to put it in the right folders for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Social studies and text activity. Seconds before you press it. Okay, wrapping up our work. First graders, if you're finished, that is right here. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to pick up your $20 bill and your iPad, and I'm going to have you get off of the carpet, and you're going to find one other first grader to share your work with, and then also an adult in the classroom to share with really quickly. Share what you're going to do with that one. So make sure that you have your iPad open to your seesaw picture so that you can share. Thumbs up if you understand. If you are ready and it's been sent, you may go, but you have 4 minutes until you need to come back to your purpose. Go ahead. If you finish sharing with another first grader, an adult, you can come back. Make sure you're going off the carpet. Find a place to talk off the carpet.
Yeah, you have to
1 minute warning, first grade.
James, did you share with the
Looks like everybody's about ready to come back. All right, iPads off, upside down.
Should we send it right now?
Hold your $20 bill. Eyes on Mr. Mr. Christian, Mr. Graham, Mr. James making that. First graders, I was fascinated by some of the choices that I saw. Mr. Christian, iPad off, upside down. Go ahead, quiet whisper shout. What was the choice that you made with your money? One, two, three, eyes on me. So we're going to be learning about all the different choices that we can make with money. We're going to talk about tons of choices. You made some brilliant choices. I heard some people, Mr. Graham, Mr. Seiler, upside down, iPads, their racers. I heard some lovely choices about buying some Legos. Raise your hand if you bought something with the money, if that was your choice. Raise your hand if you put it in a piggy bank. Raise your hand if you put it in your wallet or purse. If that was the choice you made. I'm going to change things up on you just a little bit. You ready? Please hold your $20 bill carefully, safely. Now, I want you to imagine that this $20 bill is the only money that you had to spend for the rest of the week. The only thing that you and your family could use for the rest of the week. What choice would you make with your money now?
Food.
Keep it in. I'll ask the question one more time, just as a reminder. Would your choice be the same? Would your choice be different? Level 2 voice. 1, 2, 3. Eyes on me. Mr. Tweet's first graders. In a moment, Mr. Christian with the upside down eraser. Follow those directions right away. In a moment, we are going to do the same activity that you just did on Seesaw, but this time there's new directions. New directions, and a few more actually. So you need to make sure that you're listening to all of those directions, because some of them for things that we're doing on Seesaw, and some of them have to do with our Wonderwall. So it's going to be a little extra work, so we got a few more of those steps. Thumbs up if you understand. Okay, listening to all those directions. If you are ready, you can do some of them. If you're in the Hallway Ready Club, you could go to the Hallway Ready Club and finish this work. The first part is your choice on Seesaw. It's to following those directions. It's a little bit different. There's an add, a draw, a record, and a check mark, Mr. Seiler. And then the extra steps have to do with sticky notes. If you need to use a sticky note or borrow one, you can borrow one from Mr. Tweet. Unfortunately, at this time, Mr. James, Mr. Christian, I'm going to have to collect our $20 bills. We'll have to use them. When I give you the signal, you can either work in the classroom or out in the hallway with headphones. Mr. Graham, I'm going to have you work on my table spot just because yours are not quite working. Ready? First graders, it also gives directions. You need to finish all of this before you go to reading workshop or before you go to Mrs. O'Hara's. When you're finished, yep, I know. As soon as you're done, you'll be able to go to Mrs. O'Hara's or start reading workshop, your choice. Thumbs up if you understand. Bills to Mr. Tweet first, please. I'm going to be walking around, keeping on your work. Headphones, listening to all of those directions. And we're going to talk about the choices, the new choices we made after second recess today. Yeah, so you're going to put in my table spot, we're going to work together. Wait, my dear, so let's finish that part first, and before we're done, we'll move on to those extra steps. Okay? So you know what to do? Once you finish this work, then we'll get to the next one. So which one are you going to go for? That one's going to give you the directions again. Which one are you going to press to start making? Got it.
Definitely 1 minute.
So it says explain how you're thinking of changing from the first time you did this activity. Why did you do choices?
Thank you all for being here, and thank you to Gabe for hosting all of us. Very much appreciated. We're just going to talk a little bit about the process of what we'll do during the debrief session, and just kind of highlight some things that happened in Gabe's room as well. So before we start, since we didn't get a chance to meet yesterday in person, I just would like to just review our focus areas for the Learning Lab first. So at the top of the page, if you just take a look quickly at our focus area, which is the focus of this lesson is to introduce a compelling question through the use of an inquiry-based activity. This method will be used as a basis for the implementation of social studies curricular units. So, and then you'll see the 3 questions that Gabe had posed for your observation. We'll start with round 1, which is basically all of us just sharing the things that we saw. So factual information, things that you saw, things that you heard or noticed. This is a time where when we share that information, it's non-judgmental, so we try to omit things like I felt or I liked or things like that. We're just the facts of what we saw and heard. And we'll do that as a whip around, so everyone will get a turn to share. If you want to pass, you are more than welcome to pass as well. So just so you're aware of that. During that time also, if you would just omit names, just because of when we have friends that we know are going to watch our video, that they do not connect kids with the names that we are speaking about. So if you would just use, like, I noticed a child or a boy or a girl. So, so during round 1, we discussed that, about what we heard, what we noticed. Then during round 2, we will talk about just some of the implications of what we saw. So just some of those inferences that you're able to draw from your observations from round 1. So you can say things like I noticed, just drawing from what we are learning from what we saw. So that will be what we'll do during round 2, and we'll do a whip around again when we share with that. And then during round 3 is when we ask reflective questions and are able just to get some response from Gabe. He and I did talk about how we will structure that, and we're actually going to field the questions and answers as we go. So that is the plan. So you'll pose the question and then he will answer that question on the spot. So that's kind of the plan with that. And then during round 4 is just sharing our next steps. So really just using what we've learned from some of those questions that have been asked and just what we observed as our next steps in our own classrooms, and just apply some of our learning from that. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and we'll head back to round 1. So, what did you see? Anybody like to start?
Well, I saw that all the kids were really engaged in what was going on. They were engaged in the lesson and the activity. Amazing. No judgment.
I think, well, going next, I just think that was probably the strongest point of that, is seeing the kids excited and engaged, and if they couldn't find exactly what they wanted to, that was just a piece of paper they were looking for, but they were very important. They wanted to be with everybody else. So, and they stayed engaged the whole time. And the paper was pretty exciting.
And a fun surprise underneath their name tag, an engaging way to get them excited about the lesson and what you were going to be doing. So, yeah, very engaged. The students were all excited about the lesson.
I heard a lot of curiosity when you first let them know that something was underneath their pencil box. I thought it was really neat that they just, a couple of the kids didn't just get up and go, try to look, but just lots of curious eyes I saw, and just full of wonder. I thought that was really neat.
I saw that it was really easy for all levels of kids to do this. So when they were on their iPad, even if they couldn't spell or write, they were able to draw a picture, which was really nice, and it wasn't something that had to be pointed out. You're gonna write this, you're gonna draw this. It was just a general instruction of, you can write or draw, what do you do? So I thought, I saw that. It was very good.
I heard the collective gasp when you changed the question to like, if this was all the money you had, what would you do? That was one to, you could, if we could have seen their brains working. Oh my gosh.
What I saw is the Wonderwall and how you must use that because they were all very familiar with that procedure and stuff. I thought that was unique.
One thing I saw was all the directions that were embedded. It was told, it was verbal, it was repeated, and they were all able to get that. Because I know that's something that we spend a lot of time on too, is okay, you need to wait and get all the directions out before we go on. And they had the clues they were looking for, so it was just seamlessly embedded for them. A non-teacher would notice that. It was a lot of good tools, a lot of good tools that work there.
And I just saw, just the kids were given different opportunities to share out what they had on their minds, like they were doing, like think, pair, and share, and you know, drawing on their iPads, and then they were able to share out to you, and so they were sharing in different ways too, and so you gave them multiple opportunities to do that throughout the lesson. It's really neat.
I heard a lesson that started off just asking questions on what does the word choice mean, and then thinking about choice time and them connecting that to themselves, and then it going a completely different direction.
Well, I saw how you used aided choice and questioning to work on questioning skills beforehand.
I passed.
I don't know. I come from a different world where we have some other things that we do and just linking back to previous knowledge and making it, that's always a big thing, making it relevant for them and how they relate to themselves and able to express themselves in different ways, not just whole group sharing out, which we do that a lot in our classroom, but they're able to talk to each other and manage it well. So different ways of expression and not having to just wait until
Something that I saw was kids standing up, getting things, moving around, getting with a friend, getting with an adult, looking at their iPad, maybe looking at the TV where Mr. Tweet's iPad was mirrored to the TV. Just a lot of movement going on. So there wasn't the focus didn't have to be just sitting for too long or just standing for too long or just to turn and talk for too long. Lots of variation.
Yes. Does anybody else have any lasting?
I just saw some good waiting time too. You're giving kids a lot of time to think about and share. So really good use of waiting time too.
Something else I heard when they did see what was under their pencil box was one kid yelled, "I'm rich." And so just a lot of excitement when they did see it, even though it was clear they knew that it was fake money, it was still very exciting for them.
Okay, so at the end of that round too, then I'm just gonna sum up a little bit of like some of the main points that, and I wanted to tell you that before I started, I'm like writing feverishly as you talk, but just to record, and Dave was too, but just to record like some of the main points like to gather from our conversation here. And I think one of the things that a lot of people touched on was just how engaged students were and their excitement, like Jen had mentioned as well, and many of you have, which we all recognize for first grade, that's helpful. And another thing is connecting to the background knowledge, the use of the Wonderwall, just the relevant previous things that they worked on in the past. And then the third thing that I think I drew from what you have shared too is just different ways, different modes of Gabe's interaction with the students as well as the students' interaction with the material. which a lot of you guys have mentioned as well. So those would be some areas that I think a lot of us touched on, so to sum that up. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to move to round 2. Based on your observations, what was the impact on student learning? So we're just going to make some inferences beyond our observations and our background knowledge of the lesson. I noticed is a great sentence starter as we discuss some of the implications of how we can apply this. So, anybody like to start? Oh, sure, who wants to start?
Because then no one will take mine. Well, I noticed that they connected this learning to their own lives, you know, so one little girl was telling me that she was gonna put her money in the bank, and one little boy said he was gonna put his 20 in the bank and get out 100, and I thought, oh good, you make that work. One little girl was going to donate it to the pet place, what is it?
Humane Society.
Yes, the Humane Society, and I said, well, why are you gonna do that? And she said, well, I noticed some signs that they need money. And I thought, wow, so connect to her own life, connect to the world. It's great.
I noticed how it was something completely different is if the kids did get a little bit off task, they were worked in the clear directions, they were able to very quietly ask somebody next to them, and the kids were so helpful. It was not disruptive at all, and they were able to help each other, which is a good thing too. And you don't want them talking all the time, but it worked well and in the classroom better.
I noticed they have a good understanding of like just your routine. You have a good routine, good management, and like the sign language you use to transition. I was going to say what Karen said too.
I noticed in the 2 different ways that you asked about the money, their reactions were different and your tone. So at first you made it seem exciting to have $20, and so I wonder if that led them to want to get toys and Legos. If you know, there were a couple kids that still were going to do very helpful community type things with their money. But when the second time you asked, your tone was much more sort of sad, and it was a little deeper voice, and you could tell that the kids knew it was serious, and that, you know, without, I mean, their inferencing was incredible just by the tone that you used.
Going off that, just how they were all very quickly changed what they were going to choose the second go around to food and water. Which made me chuckle a little bit about the water. But they quickly, I mean, I didn't hear every kid, but all the kids that I did hear had switched it then to food or water or something, knowing they have to have food in order to survive the week, so.
I noticed a lot of acceptance of everyone's ideas. I think the kids were really accepting of everyone's ideas, which was really cool.
To kind of piggyback off of that, they all had success with the lesson.
One thing I noticed too when they went totally practical the second time is I always thought that really kind of gave a good reflection of what their home life or life or the community. I was like, man, these kids really are pretty practical. I come from that, you know, basics. So I thought that showed more about what their parents are teaching them, what they need.
And I just noticed in a half hour's time just how much you got accomplished, you know, and how much the kids were able to show and what they were able to discuss. And it just kind of moved along, but a lot was accomplished, a lot got done.
Yeah, I noticed there wasn't any, I can't, there was all very positive, a very positive learning environment in that way, which is a clear of your community that you felt in there. I also noticed that to go on, you know, at first their $20 was a lot to them, you know, like, all right, I can get this big toy for $20. Then the second was, like, some of their expressions on their face was, oh, $20 is not very much. So that was interesting to me. I mean, I was impressed with first graders in your class that saw that clear expectation between the two. $20 for the rest of the week is not a lot for my family then.
I noticed you didn't have to give out names when it was time to do the second part independently and to go into different places. And you actually listed quite a few different things, you know, listing hallway buddy or hallway friends, and then you mentioned writer's workshop, I think, and then ELP, and they were just like, it was like, whoa, this is a lot, and they all knew just where to go. They didn't have to look at any kind of rotation schedule. They didn't have to look for their name on the TV. They just knew exactly what you meant, and also no one raced to get there. It was, it was just very structured.
I noticed how awesome they were on Seesaw. They were very, very comfortable with it and knew just how to get in there, and even some changing the thickness of the pens and adding these cool little boxes for their text boxes, and it was really amazing to see teaching kindergarten and where they're at now.
I noticed that they do have the misconception that they can take $20 and get $100, because that happened to all of us. And as we think about teaching this unit, that's not a misconception I thought the first graders would have, but they obviously, it's still kind of magic to them, the money. So I'm glad I noticed that. Because it wasn't just one child, it was multiple kids, think. So.
I noticed too that there were really no behavior problems. Kids were all engaged and actively learning, and it was awesome to see. No one was really off task or anything, so, yeah.
I just kind of passed this argument. I was just really struck with how well they were able to take like 4 or 5 step directions.
Just one last thing. I was really amazed by the kids working in the hall and how they just knew to go to their own space. There wasn't somebody that started talking to their friend or started talking about the $20 again. You know, that would be natural too. I think if teachers at a staff meeting were asked to break up and work on something and, oh, this comes to mind, hey, what about this? You know, totally off topic. So I thought that was pretty neat. And I think maybe they've earned that right to be out there to, you know, maybe cycle certain kids, you know, maybe there's rhyme and reason, but I thought that was wonderful. I'm not so sure I can trust my little 3rd graders to do that. So that was great.
Pass.
Pass. Any last thing? Okay. And just to sum that up a little bit, I think there was a lot of focus on routines. For example, like the sign language and just the community culture that Gabe created, and the structure, and just behavior expectations. And it seems that resulted in a successful lesson, a successful community classroom, and just an ability for students to really be able to accomplish a lot because of all of those that are in place. I also noticed that a lot of us, just that understanding, as Sarah had mentioned too, of the $20 and just seeing that as a misconception, but then also as a learning point then, right, for that unit of study. So being able to use that as a springboard as a result of this lesson. So thank you for sharing that round. Question time. So round 3, we're going to ask reflective questions, and then we'll be able to hear from our host Gabe in response. Some sentence starters I'm wondering about, or why, or how did you, how was your thinking, or why did you do this? We're going to just avoid saying how you considered, just because sometimes that can be considered judgmental. So, and I know we're not going to be like that, right? Okay, so Karen, would you like to start again, or do we have? Mark your question off, Karen.
I just really wonder about your Wonderwall game. I love it. So can you tell me a little bit about how you started it and how you use it other than in this lesson?
Yeah, so Pinterest. So I saw it on Pinterest, I don't know who shared it with me at some point, but found it, this is the third year I've used it. And it depends on, it's usually science and social studies that I'll put it up there, and I'll start whatever unit by allowing them to ask their questions. And sometimes I'll do a Kwl chart, sometimes I'll just let them write their questions. And like today, after everyone left, like I had 3 or 4 students that just spent the rest of the reading workshop time just asking questions. So some of them have like 8 or 9, so it's just like, so they get really excited about using that. But they also know that it's not just for that. So for example, I have one student in the classroom that while they're pulling down all their penguin questions, I could see they still had some of the old ones up about engineering, or about like how many sides is like the biggest shape. So it's like whenever they're thinking within the classroom, I know if they have their sticky note, they're writing on something, for the most part, sometimes they're just drawing. I can see that, okay, something popped into their head, and maybe it's not the most appropriate question right now, so we've worked to develop that routine that they can write down that question. Or sometimes it's a statement that they just want me to take a look at, like we need more Pete the Cat books or something. So sometimes they use it correctly, sometimes they don't. But they'll be able to walk up in the middle of the class and just stick it up there, and then I know that they're with me, they just want to get an idea out of their head instead of letting that drive them kind of nuts for the rest of the day, or diverting. And I'm all for teachable moments, but sometimes have a limited amount of time. So that's been really nice for me to implement that. So I just take pictures of them on the first day of school in their thinking poses, and then just use the same thought bubbles, but then animate them, stick them up there.
So how do you get back to then answering their questions or discussing their questions?
So that's a good question. So for like this social studies unit, those questions that they pose today are going to be, that's like the whole idea with these social studies standards and inquiries, that I have a plan, but their questions are also going to help guide me through the lessons of what things they're curious about, because that's also very valid, very important, and that's going to be way more authentic and meaningful for them if they have their questions answered. So the cool thing about what we did today is that when they put a new question up, they took all their penguin questions down and they set them down on the table. And so after second recess, I talked about the compelling question with them again. But I also had the stack of sticky notes, and we went through them about penguins one by one, and kind of like debriefed about those. And so it was cool. We could flip through, and so I pulled a sticky note and said, does anybody know how long a penguin can stay underwater? And one kid raised their hand and said 27 minutes. And so it's like, I can tell that they're retaining the information, or they can do a turn and talk and share if I could see that not many kids remember something. So it helps me. I write them down, or I take pictures of them, and then that lets me guide what we're going to be learning about. But then at the very end, I use that as like the W section of like a Kwl chart, and we go through, instead of writing down all of the things we learned, we just do a whole group share. And it also helps me when I'm setting up research groups for like guided reading groups. I'll have them write down what they're interested in, and they can put that up there, and so I can go back and look at that and use that to figure out which keystone books to get. So use it for a few different purposes. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does.
Question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of towards, do you kids come in kind of knowing how to ask a question? So then my question is like, how do you get them to really start asking those questions?
Yeah.
That's a skill I'm teaching them, and I got like 3 or 4 that do well with that, and the other one's just kind of, last time I did this. So we really work on what is the question, how would be a better way of starting that?
So we're still struggling with that, because some of the sticky notes that were put up there were statements today, so I had to have a conversation. And so that's where I'm hoping with books like Ada Twist, that it's giving them an idea. So it's using literature a little bit more to talk about those questions, or using that exclamation mark book, which has all the lists of questions, and we can then examine all the different ways that questions start, and how you're seeking information. But then, if I'm answering your question, hopefully, it's a lot of like small groups that I'm working with kids, and we're working on developing questions in a small group setting. I feel like it's challenging for me to do it as a whole group. So just bringing them over and what I've been doing is having them choose a topic that they're interested in, and it feels like when they're interested in something, the questions just kind of like effortlessly flow from them. So if I can get them to do that, then it's just kind of bringing them back to, okay, so when you're wondering about tigers, one of the students, what were some of the things you asked about and questioned? So then when we were looking at things with penguins, they're like, oh, well, I wanted to know what they wanted to eat. So then I could try to help them relate it to, okay, so what could we ask about penguins? Oh, we could figure out what they want to eat as well. So it doesn't always work that way, but trying to find commonalities between what we're looking into and what they're already interested in or what they've looked at before. Does that answer?
Yeah,
somewhat?
How do you find their interest?
Yeah.
Sometimes you stumble on it, it's great. Other times,
Right. Yeah. I just have them make lists of things that they're, or just through conversation, having them tell me what they're interested in, or just noticing, oh, you bring a Minecraft book in. Yeah, that's something I have to get better at as well. I don't feel like I have all the answers, but that's what I do. Anyway.
So where are you going from here after this lesson? And what would be kind of the next step?
Good question. So when I'm planning ahead, as a first grade team, I sent a link, hopefully everybody has that now, but we have a breakdown of all the units of study, and our different compelling questions and supportive questions. And we've purchased some resources. So using those as kind of like and using those and some of our supporting questions to move forward and have like kind of an outline. But the next step for me is going to be able to figure out, okay, how many of my students' questions right now fit or line up with what we already have, and what other things do I need to supplement, what other activities do I need to figure out. I already got a bunch of Keystone books so that they can use those to do some reading. Thank goodness one of my kids actually noticed, they're like, there's books about money in the hallway. And I'm like, it's like I got them for a reason or something. So making the connection was nice. So that'll be my next step, is figuring out, does what they want to know about line up with what we already have planned? And how can I move fast enough in our math unit to start working on money so we can tie those things in, so that it's, I don't know, lining up a little bit better then.
So, do you ever have them help you try to align those? So, I'm just thinking how much that's on your plate of you looking at what you want them to learn and then what they want to learn and piecing them together. I mean, do they share? I mean, I don't know if I'm asking that correctly, but do you have them help you in trying to put those pieces together?
I haven't, but I feel like that's something that maybe I potentially could if I showed them some of the things we were going to be learning about, and maybe we could take those sticky notes and place them under like different areas. Because some kids did ask questions about jobs, and some kids, and that's why on the seesaw directions, I don't know, maybe that was hard for all of you to see, but they were able to ask on a sticky note a question about either banks or jobs or money, so maybe they could help to organize that with me, and that would help them to feel like they're a little bit more part of that process. And the hope is, by using this Wonderwall And the way that we're doing social studies is that they can keep developing those questions. And that's part of it, is that they can keep, hopefully, finding ways to be inspired to ask another question. But to answer your question, I haven't done that yet, but I think that would be really beneficial for me and for them. I just don't know how to quite do it yet.
And then you did turn and talk to, or what are other ways that you share their learning?
Their learning?
Yeah,
Um,
because I didn't see all the
Oh,
notes,
sure.
so that's on me.
Yeah, so all their questions are all the things that they thought anyway.
Oh,
So okay, so the nice thing about this, using the seesaw activities, is that now I can just go in, and part of our like debrief is being able to actually click in, and then a few kids can share. So I can have it right here, and I can just click in right now, right here, and James can give me a quick summary of what he learned and what his ideas were. And I don't have, and none of us have, the ability, I think, to listen to each kid and get their ideas and see their understanding or sometimes their misconceptions. So this will help me to be able to go through that. And they're about like a minute a piece, and it's like 20-25 minutes to a half hour. But it's the beginning of the unit, so I feel like I have enough time for that. And then I can select some of the things that would be really important to share out. Or if certain kids just want to have their stuff shared with the rest of the class, sometimes that's just important to feel visible. So that's one of the different ways. And other times I'll have them just go to their table spots and have conversations, or I'll pull a few kids over to my table and we'll discuss. Nothing groundbreaking, but it's nice to have this record so that we can go back and we can talk about things as we go.
You mentioned that you've purchased some resources. Do any of the resources include any types of assessment, or if you, as your team, or you thought about assessment, more formal? It's funny because when I went back to my room, we started teaching about the economy today in third grade.
Oh.
And it's amazing, just from first grade to third grade, the standards and what's expected of students to learn. I mean, we were talking about markets and pretty big terms, and so, but I know our curriculum comes with assessments.
Right.
So
Ours does. There's a lot of them that, and they're right over there too. We were working together as a team to start putting binders together. But a lot of them do have more so like formative assessments, go with like specific lessons. But as a team, we've come up with some summative performance tasks and like taking informed action for like, so for our economics unit, our goal is to either have a bank representative come in and talk and like create moon jars about like saving and spending, or like specific, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, okay. Or one of our ideas was to lead this stuff like what choices, what decisions do we make with our money. They would go home and interview an adult and then come back and like interview them and ask about a money saving strategy. And so then they'd make like a little poster, piece of paper, and they could all show that, display that. So yeah, different ways. And some of them we tried to be really thoughtful with like technology, like using the Right Reader app, or writing a letter to some people in local government. Like, yeah, and I think that's the nice thing about these new social studies standards, is that they're asking us to do things that are more authentic, as opposed to, okay, here's your test.
yeah,
Do it right.
having a live person, I think, is definitely more impactful than a written test. That's
Yeah.
really great.
That's our hope anyway, as a team. But
So,
yeah, we're still moving through those.
So where did you come up with the idea for this lesson? It's really great. It's really, really good.
Brainstorming between me and Anthony. Yeah, just sitting down, and we had initially talked about doing maps, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I feel like I've taught maps in so many different ways in the past that could be on the map stuff. And so I wanted to do something that would push me to just do something different. I've done it before where it's like everybody's excited when there's something like hidden underneath their seat. But I just knew if I taped something, somebody would walk by and see it underneath their chair. I was just hoping. And I gave them the instruction, you come right to me. As soon as you get your shoes on, you don't go to your spot and check things out. But yeah, it was just a back and forth collaboration, which is, yeah.
Well, and it's funny, because as we tossed it around, even the amount, originally we started with like $100, and then, you just don't really know what their concept of money, the amount wise, so we kind of went back and forth, and then, we landed on $20, but there's that, what is it, the C3 framework website, which I felt like had some good information on it as well, and then we just kind of went from there. I mean, of course, online we got just a lot of different ideas, but
yeah, I really like the idea of giving them an opportunity to work with that compelling question without even knowing that they're working on it. Like this, here's this choice, and then flipping it on them. So I felt like that was really nice. I could just do a collaborative lesson planning all the time. It's so lovely. So thank you, Andrea.
So going off that, will you structure every lesson that way, or will some of it be kind of a sit and get type lesson, or?
I mean, I think some of it might be a little more sit and get because of the K2 level, but if most of it could be started with like a question, and we're investigating, if I can find a way so that we're investigating, that would be, I think I get the most bang for my buck, no pun intended. But with my students, they'd get a better experience, and I would too. I think that'll be a slight challenge given the curriculum that we've purchased, that it's not really always structured that way, but I feel like that's a slight adjustment. And I think that's always the hope, that it would be more about inquiry as opposed to sit and get, but I feel like some of it will have to be, just because that's an effective way for certain things to be taught. But my hope is not all of it. Yeah.
Just to interject one more thing too, as Gabe and I had talked about that too, also the focus on like the change in their thinking from the beginning of the lesson to the end. A lot of that inquiry-based learning, reflective thinking for the students too is what really one of our goals of the lesson was really for them to be thinking, to see their own change too, and to kind of understand, how did my thinking change? And Gabe had that great seesaw that he had put on there for them to complete, but that was an important component, as part of inquiry-based learning, and just for them to carry that out as an understanding of the lesson. And I think that could be carried forward too in other lessons as well, as part of his curriculum.
So in your form that you had emailed us, I didn't get a chance to really look at. Did you guys come up with supporting questions?
Yes.
Too within there?
So within our supporting questions for economics, we came up with how do people earn money? What is the difference between a good and a service, so that we were able to hit on jobs? Does everything I want or need come from Decorah? And what do I do if I can't afford something I want or need? And all of those, we tried to make sure that we asked questions that aligned with our compelling question that could be answered within that umbrella, but also that they aligned with our social studies standards, which are super wordy and not super student friendly, but we just tried to find ones that would fit our kids and focusing on our smaller community of Decorah, so not moving too far out into the world, because I know that's going to be second grade that they're going to move further out, and third grade and everything. But yeah, making sure those questions aligned with the compelling question itself and also the standards. And I think that was challenging, but I think it's going to work well for us.
Pass.
because she talked about a curriculum and you guys purchased one. Did you purchase it from,
TPT.
okay,
There's somebody that has created a social studies curriculum for kindergarten. It's called Little Thinkers, and she's currently developing some for first grade. They're not perfect, and there's a little bit of overlap, sometimes a lot of it overlap, but they're nice jumping off points. And she's working on first grade as the year goes, and I don't know if she has a plan to make something for second grade, but we also used the C3 framework, like the Engage New York, which has really good ideas, and it's kind of broken down, so there's good thoughts and good ideas out there already. They're just sometimes more New York focused, so you just have to readjust, and like, yeah, but they already have compelling questions, they already have supporting questions and different resources you could go to, so it's a good jumping off point. I think that's the best stuff that we found so far, but Dana's got all this good knowledge in there too, so.
Okay.
Beth and I both went to a training with Dana, and we just both, I don't know, I felt really passionate about it because I feel like I wanted to get ahead of things. So I feel like we're ahead of like what state expectations, district expectations are of like how we're implementing things.
Yeah.
But it's been nice to feel, it's been nice to feel like I'm getting a sense of things, because it always is like that huge learning curve. It's like, it takes time, so. Yeah, I still don't know, and that's the nice thing about this, like this is brand new for all of us, so it's just figuring out when to jump in. And that's not too scary, and Dana's great support, so.
I feel like we're just so far behind, it's not even fun.
Any other lingering questions for anyone? So just to sum up some of what we discussed in round 3 in regards to questions, I think there was a lot of answers from Gabe about just in moving forward with next steps. But it's also brand new, so I think kind of marrying those two and paving the way with that through guidance from your students seems to be a common theme with that. And what a neat thing to think about that Meg had brought up too, and just maybe involving students in that process. So that was another thing that I had thought had recorded as well. So next for round 4, we're just going to share some next steps. Just some takeaways, some new learning, aha moments that will influence your teaching within your own classroom. So just some ways that we're able to apply it or use some of our new learning ourselves. So anybody else besides Karen want to start off? Go ahead, Karen.
Well, one thing I can definitely see is I'm going to look up those websites. I'm going to try to figure this out. I don't know, I feel like my team will kill me if I come back with this, because it's just so much, I don't know how we're gonna do it. But I do feel like we need to keep moving forward with this as well. So maybe a baby step, maybe we could set a goal of doing something this year and then moving on. I don't know, that's.
Just different level of that, it's not social studies, but I'm just thinking about using the tools of the inquiry base. We want to do a little bit more of that in preschool, especially based. But just kind of taking me back to, you need to have something hands-on to get them started with that. And sometimes it's hard to make that connection. I want to do that Friday. Thinking, what can I use as hands-on? So we're given transportation, I just don't want to take them off in my car.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to make that connection. I can do that in the classroom without. So we're going on a field trip.
Can we go bicycling into the classroom?
Can you read a book first and that gets the discussion started, or?
Sometimes I do that, or I'll show them a short video and things like that. So it's just always trying to get something more exciting.
Could they bring a car in or a bath toy? They could take a boat at home?
Or I do have like
Or a
the
bus.
center, we've got a truck in our center. I'll just drive that thing
Or
over.
from Keystone?
We've got vehicles, yeah. And we have some of those things too, we have those toys out and ready for them to implement with it. Just sort it. Yeah. Those are my district, so. District limits.
I think I find myself doing all the work, doing all the teaching instead of, asking them questions and having them, do more of it too, and do a lot of the thinking and the talking. It's a lot of me doing everything for them. So, and just your waiting time too, I just feel like we're rushing through trying to get everything in, but it's so important, and it just goes to show in your lesson, just giving them that thinking time, that waiting time, just time to show what they know, just time, just taking the time to slow down and give them opportunities to share and think and show.
Can we interject for a moment? Is that okay? Sure. Okay. I appreciate you saying that, just because I have one student that has a language IEP now, that like wait time is like the big thing for them. So I appreciate hearing that, because I'm going out of my mind, like, oh my gosh, I'm waiting so long. So that's good to hear that.
It was a good amount.
Good. So good. Thank you.
I would really like to try opening up each unit with these compelling questions where it's really engaging for them, because I present my compelling question and then I tell them. I present the compelling question and I say, and this is the answer. So just making it much more engaging, because I can tell that they learn a lot more from that than you just saying, this is how the different ways we spend money. So just trying to figure out how I can do that at a kindergarten level. So yeah, I would like to do that and try that.
And it was like 10 years ago, but we're doing inquiry science, and the science teacher over at Howard Wynn, she did a study on it about inquiry versus non-inquiry, and her kids with inquiry learned the material better than the kids who didn't do it, even though she was pulling out her hair, they were going down the wrong path. I mean, it was like hard for her to watch it. So, again, it's just such a good reminder to do it, even though it's not neat and tidy. You don't know where it's going. And we feel so pressed for time that it's hard to take that time, but it's so important.
But it's so meaningful.
Exactly.
So when did you guys meet? I'm just blown away by this. We're so far behind. When did you guys meet then?
We had 3 times, right?
Yeah, we've done.
Like after school times, you mean, or what?
Dana was able to find. Yeah, half days.
Oh, so like a sub in your class.
Coaches come in.
Oh.
Like Andrea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or we'd just be able to sit and we just had thoughts and ideas of what we wanted to accomplish, and sometimes it was tough to figure out what the next step was, but I feel like we're at a really good place right now that we're able to find things and agree on what we want to see moving forward.
And it was super helpful, Dana, to have you the first time to keep saying
all that.
questions, engaging questions, compelling, see, I get them all mixed up.
Yeah.
But just to keep that format, that was super helpful.
And to remind us that we don't have to have like a summative assessment, or like a big summative assessment, or a big like take action for everything. That we don't have to feel as stressed about it, that we're accomplishing things in different ways and showing them in different ways. So yeah, having Data's presence there, checking in on us and making sure that we're following those things, because we have a good idea of what we need, but yeah, she has really good background.
Did you guys grade that on report cards?
We have like 3 or 4?
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Okay.
So like, one of them's about trade, and so we
do a training activity, and we're not, I wouldn't say we're going in depth on some of this, it's more exposure.
Yeah.
And I assume the report card might change. Sorry, Dana, right, on the social studies standards someday maybe.
And so then how are, like, I think, what did I say, we have 24 of them, or how do you pick which ones, and,
Well, the first set of them, like your first like 6 are more like teacher focused, right? Things that the teachers hopefully will accomplish, like explaining what a compelling question is or constructing responses. And then the rest of them, it's through those units of either the compelling questions or like the supporting questions that you're just having, like that's what we did, trying to frame those around certain units. So we have 6 units. We'll see if that's too much or too little, and maybe we have to find ways to combine units together.
do you have 6 different things on your report card yet?
Not at this point. No, we don't. No, yeah. No, it feels like there's a disconnect there that needs to be adjusted.
And we don't know how we're going to fit this in here. I mean, there is that big
That's
looming
my other thing,
question.
so like, how do you fit in science and social studies?
That's the compelling question.
And we had talked about potentially like taking some weeks off for our literature units and just saying, okay, we're going to be looking at books, we're going to be reading, we're going to be doing these things. Maybe we just have to give ourselves a break and say, okay, for a week or so, let's not do this and just really hit.
Or a natural break between the units would be
Right.
nice too.
Because we're doing reading and writing,
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
There's, yeah.
And comprehension. And comprehension, I mean, that's a big component.
Kudos to you guys, thank you so much.
Well, as we wrap up, any other ahas or anything that anybody wanted to share? Well, thank you guys all for participating, and Gabe and I are both very appreciative, and thank you, Gabe, again, for letting us come in. Also, if you guys need any support from a coach or anything, please let us know, or let myself know, or any of the coaches. We'd love to collaborate and just continue on this journey. So let us know if you need anything. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah.